Hello and welcome to the Controller Talk podcast presented by Danfoss North America. Our goal is to bring you information about using Danfoss controls in the supermarket and warehouse industry, specifically in the US and Canada. We're doing these twice a month for now. You can catch these podcasts wherever you get your podcast, and it's also available through the Danfoss Ref Tools app. For the video version, check us out on the Danfoss North America YouTube page. Search for Controller Talk to see our video collection. I'm Dave Yoder, along with Chris Brown. All right, Chris, I've been meaning to talk about some of these apps that are available for your smartphones that you could use them to find information to make your life a little easier when it comes to working in this world of supermarkets and warehouses that we usually refer to as food retail.
Yeah.
And we may have touched on some of these briefly in some other episodes, but today we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into 4 of the ones that I think are the most useful. So, like we said, Danfoss does have other apps for things like turbo core compressors, drives, heating, and other areas. And last night, I think I counted like 35 apps or something. I was going to say,
if you type Danfoss in the App Store or Google Play, there's a lot.
Yeah, I think there's over 30 of them, probably closer to 40.
Yep.
But we're going to run down in no particular order. Maybe they are in a particular order, but
it's not alphabetical.
That's for sure. We're going to run down through these and talk about some of the highlights of some of these. And some of you may already have them and be familiar with them, and if not, then they may be useful for you. So the first one is the one called Cool Code, where cool is spelled with a K. And you can use this to look up parameters in a lot of our controllers, like case controllers and all sorts of things. And you can look up alarm codes and status codes and all sorts of things in here. And one of the controllers or series of controllers that's included are the ERC 100 and 200 series that you might see in like a glass door merchandiser or running some food service equipment.
Yeah. It does not, at least on my last check, it does not include our latest case controller, the CC55.
Yep, you are right about that.
Yeah. So for that model, the CC55s, we have it's a Connect app. So it allows you to get in with a Bluetooth display that's mounted to the case controller itself. You can use that to get in through this app to the case controller. It pretty much allows you to do anything you want at that point. You can change set points, check values, that sort of thing. So it does require this Bluetooth display be mounted to the case controller, though. So whether it's somebody that's carrying them around in their tool bag and you've got the display and cable and you hook that up, it does have to have an address in it. But you can essentially use this thing, or some people may just have them mounted on the cases by default, and all you've got to do is walk up to it and press the button. But yeah, you can use this as an extension of the case controller or system manager to get into that case and change settings. Like I said, you can save the settings within the app to a file and then use those settings, that package, to go and load that into another case controller. So if it's a situation where we don't have the system manager with all the settings there to download to the case controllers, then maybe you take one model type of a case, set that the way you want it with your defrost and everything else, save it in the app, and then you can load it into your next case controller that's on a case that has that same model in it.
Yep. And like we said when we talked about the CC55, you can almost by default lock those displays out so that not anyone can just play with the case if they happen to have the app and a little bit of time on their hands. They're locked out, so you have to really know what you're doing to unlock them.
Yep, and have the access in the system manager to get there, right?
That's true, yep. So the next one we're going to talk about is the Site Service app. And this has been around since the later years of the 255 controller. And I think a lot of people use it, but we don't really get a ton of feedback on it. And there's probably more people using it than we know. But it requires a little bit of knowledge about networking and that sort of thing. But you can use it with some of the higher versions of the 255 software, as long as the web files are loaded in the controller like you normally would on a lot of your upgrades.
Is that a Stump Dave question? What software version has to be in there?
It is, yeah. You can ask me that one next year. I'll research.
I can't remember either. It's like 2191 or a little bit higher. I don't know.
Right around there. Yeah, that's right. But this can also be used with the 355, the 800 series, and the 800A controllers. Although the 800A controllers, you could use your phone's browser too if you want to communicate.
Yep.
So the controller, of course, like we said, it needs to have its web files up to date in the controller for it to work. And the controller, of course, needs to be on a network. And then your phone essentially needs to be able to be on that same network or be able to get to it.
Yep.
So that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. But if the controller itself is on a private network, your phone has to be able to get to that network. And if the controller is set up with a public IP address, then that's really the best situation, because then you can connect to it from basically anywhere that you can get a internet signal or Wi-Fi signal or pick up a cell tower or whatever. So you're good to go there. Right. And then when you go into the app and you want to set up the site on there, you need to know the login credentials, the IP address, and the web server port. And you just have to select which type of controller you have. And then once it connects, you can save that in the little address book in your phone. But the intent here is to use the app to connect from a phone or a tablet to get into the controller and kind of see the important stuff like alarms and temperatures, maybe put an override in, but not use it to do a full configuration setup, because you're not going to be able to get to those menus.
Yeah, you're not changing boarding points, addresses, that sort of thing here. It's the basics, right?
That's right.
The app number 4 is maybe the most comprehensive app, our Ref Tools app. So it has a lot of individual things kind of packed into that one application. If you're using this, maybe the most prominent from the list is the Ref Slider app. So this is where we can get in for a PT chart for just about any refrigerant you've got out there. I know a lot of guys that use it. So I mean, it's reliable, trustworthy. I think it goes back to a global system with the Antoine constants that we're looking at. So it's a handy tool there with the Ref app. We have a product finder here, which is kind of an extension of our product store. If you've ever, from a PC, gone into our product store, so you can drill down to just about any component that we offer at least in our cooling and heating divisions, which is what most listeners are familiar with anyway or dealing with. But you can drill down to the same source of information that you get from the product store with product sheets, data sheets, part numbers. You can actually add the parts to a cart or a basket if you wanted to in there, almost like you were shopping on Amazon. So the product finder's for that purpose, to get details on a specific component, whether it's a compressor, a valve, or a controller, and track down part numbers and whatnot. We can recommend superheat settings for expansion valves. So if we're changing refrigerant types in a system, this part of the app could come in handy to see what superheat settings we should be using for the different models we offer on the expansion valves. That might change based on what the refrigerant is. There's a spare parts finder, which again, a bit of an extension of the product store. But if we've got a compressor or expansion valve and we need a crankcase heater or whatever else it might be for a compressor, for example, you can drill down and get all the spare parts with the part numbers that are available for some of those components. Everyone used to ask for extras of our magnetic tool anytime we did a training class years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
We probably still have a few of those laying around somewhere, but
the price just went up.
Yeah, right. Find them on eBay. But by and large, that's gone away, and the tool within the app now replaces that. So you can actually use your phone as that magnetic tool that we used to have a physical device for.
Yeah, I think once it picks up that magnetic field, it will vibrate your phone and it'll show you the direction of rotation and all that good stuff.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
You can even find a distributor. I mean, and it can use your positioning if you've got location services turned on your phone. So if you've got this cart with products added in that you want to purchase and you're buying through a distributor, you can just go right into the app and figure out who's nearby, and it can get you in touch with those people with contact information. And then last but certainly not least is there's some links in there to the podcasts that Danfoss offers, both our own and global. So yeah, just about any podcast that Danfoss puts out there, you're going to be able to find right in the app as well.
Yeah. Is ours the best?
It's a jaded question, but you know the real answer.
Yeah, I think we're extremely adequate, don't you?
I do.
Okay.
Hopefully more than.
That's right. All right. So that's a pretty good summary of the apps that you might be able to download and use if you don't already have them, but they all have their own use, and they're pretty handy from what I can see. All right, Chris, so let's see if we can stump you again. And this time I'm going to ask you a jaded question since those are your favorites. So what is before I ask you, this has relevance, just so you know. What is the battery change interval on the 255 and the 355 that's recommended?
First of all, you didn't ask me if I claim to not have known the answers before.
Oh, that's true.
You stopped with the disclaimers.
That's right. I didn't. I know I didn't share them with you. That's for sure.
Once a year. We go on. I know once every 2 or 3, probably realistically, before they would go. We'd really have to worry about it. But
you're not a gambler, are you?
You're going longer than that.
At least every 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just going on the track record of
I was
the
playing
controller.
It safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
My price is right at it. I went
without going over.
Yeah.
I would say, and it's a hard thing to keep track of because as there's turnover with contractors and with the people within the contractors, it's a hard thing to keep track of unless you've got a good system.
Yeah.
But I think 5 years is reasonable just based on the number of issues that we see where people call and say, hey, I had to reload this, why? And looking at low battery alarm numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The controllers really don't have problems with batteries. And I would say every 5 years is reasonable.
And you do get an alarm. So, on the 255 at least, not the 55. You do get the alarm. That helps out.
Right. The 255, 355 will give you that alarm.
Just don't power it down when you've replaced the battery.
That is true. Yeah. A word to the wise is leave it powered up.
Yeah.
Back up the program or the database if you have that option. And then when you're dealing with the battery clips, just don't bend them any more than you have to.
Yeah.
A gentle touch goes a long way because the guys that get in there and get rough with it end up breaking the battery clip, and now you've got real problems. And
it probably isn't relevant anymore since we're not manufacturing them, but if they were going on a shelf or not powered up without anything, they weren't going to last that long, right? They weren't going to hold the program, at least. It wasn't going to stand there.
You might be surprised. I've seen some powered down for a year that still have the programming in them.
Yeah.
But to most guys that know they're going to be offline for a while, just change the battery jumper to save the battery. So yeah. Fortunately, in the new controllers like the 800 and the 800A, there is no battery.
Irrelevant.
So, yeah, no concerns there.
That helps.
All right. I thought we would get the word out there and try to embarrass you at the same time. Mission accomplished. All right. So moving on to listener mail. Let's see what we got in the old mailbag this time around. So we have a follow-up. Now, our follow-up is regarding those curious little bags of resistors that we ship with our combo boards.
What, 47K was my guess. Was I in the ballpark?
You are right on. Nailed it.
Let's go.
So it's a 47K resistor. It comes with the combo boards or any kind of really input board. And the question that we had a couple episodes back was why? Why are we getting these? What do I do with them? And at the time we said, give them to your friends or loved ones for Christmas or whatever.
Just don't put them at the end of the loop, whatever you do.
That's right. Yeah, bad things will happen.
Yeah.
But now the intent here was to cover all situations. And it turns out that you really don't need them. And that's because if you happen to take a AKS32R transducer, which we typically only use on case controllers, but if you happen to hook one of those up to a XM input board, If that transducer went bad, the board would have trouble detecting that and spitting out a sensor failure alarm. Unless you take this 47K resistor and hook it up against across signal and common. So that's the only purpose for those that I could find, and with all the associated paperwork. Now you know.
And it's a little redundant anyway, because maybe you don't get the sensor fail alarms, which they'd have to be enabled anyway. But
right.
You should get a lower high discharge or suction pressure, whatever it is.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yeah. At the time, neither one of us knew the answer, so a little research. All right. If you'd like to drop us an email with a suggestion for topics to cover, or a question like Steve Moore did with those little resistors, or a comment, of course, you can email us at ControllerTalkNorthAmerica@danfoss.com. That's ControllerTalkNorthAmerica@danfoss.com. Thanks for listening. Our studio and conspicuously absent audio engineer is Michael, don't call me Mike Beckerman. But the person really running the show here is Maria. She's the backbone of our production at this point. And the new guy, Josh Tignall, is still not touching anything. Our audio engineer is still the mysterious Raul Garcia. Until next time, for Chris Brown, I'm Dave Yoder. Stay cool.